The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Home Field Advantage is a brand new show we started here several months ago. Teresa Autrey with Expert Realty in Hoover. She does wonderful work. She's been a broker for 30 years, and she's been my friend for 30 years. And so I'm happy that every single week I get to sit down and talk with her about the mortgage business, about being a broker, and everything that has to do with real estate. So it's great stuff. We had a lot of people that commented on our veteran show that we did last week, by the way, and you can find that where you get your favorite podcast. We're available on every major industry. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, we're up on it. Tony Kurre Radio, TKR, and just pull up Home Field Advantage or HFA, and you can go ahead and check those out and listen to all of our past shows. We try to stay extremely topical, even though this is a moving target. Things are constantly moving around here. And then I had several other people that commented, they not only love the VA thing, but they're like, hey, when you're doing that show with her, do you do it every single week? I'm like, yeah, could you please ask her? And I'm like, sure. You could also go to info@tonykurreradio.net and drop your questions. So we have a couple of questions here. I know you, I love this about you. For people that don't know you, you cannot talk to Teresa for 5 minutes. It does not exist. There is a time continuum here. So when she calls you and says, give me a call, block off 30 minutes, but I will promise you it'll be the best 30 minutes of your day. It'll always change your life. And so you and I were speaking for a good 15, 20 minutes here before we actually started the show. And you went to a workshop of sorts, a mindset business planning workshop, and it really affected you. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a woman who sold thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of houses, millions and millions and millions of inventory. She's got 30 years of experience. She's been to 3 or 4 different places. She leaves when she wants. She goes when she comes, and she finds her little nest and she does her thing. Why would she need to find out about planning and about, mindset things and the positive nature of the business and the do's and the don'ts and everything else? Talk a little bit before we get into these questions. Talk a little bit about that and what made you want to go into this process yesterday, because I know a lot of people that were there in this process also are like you, that got years and years of experience, because you're only as smart as yesterday.
Well, thank you for the question. And I too cannot believe it. It was phenomenal. And the people I was in the room with were just masterminds themselves, and the teacher. So I wanted to let you guys know Jason Bonner. He's with Ramp. He does a phenomenal job. He talks as fast as I do, as fast as Tony here. And boy, we get through it. So there's not a minute spent of leisure. This is true CE credit stuff you have to do. And I chose to do it because sometimes in life we can get stagnant. Mm-hmm. We can be around the same people and the same mindset. I'm not a fan of that. What I have to do is I'm a engager. I'm going to always be meeting. I never meet a stranger. I'm going to let you choose how we dance. If you're nice to me, I'm going to be nice to you, and we're going to get through it. And I know also when you need your cup refilled, you go to the place, you go to the well. Yeah. And I didn't make a lot of money yesterday because I was in this room. I mean, we're like on lockdown. You would think we were training for the Navy SEALs of real estate here. And we got through the material really quickly. We did the 2025 business plan, and it was just phenomenal. I got several pieces of great nuggets of wisdom. And what was ironic is I started getting texts afterwards from other brokers, from other people, because they found out about the podcast and saw a few shows. Good. And then I started getting text messages from this meeting from clients of theirs and other agents with other agencies saying, hey, can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? Can you answer this on the air? Can we do this? Oh, great. And it was just a phenomenal response. So I even started getting questions about from buyers and from sellers that hadn't messaged me in months about condos and rates and this and that and the other, because now the election's over. And now we're at the end of the year, and we're looking forward to moving forward in 2025. Well,
say what you want to. And there's 110,000 new podcasts that come out every year. 110,000 new podcasts that come out every year. I'm happy.
And I thought I was special.
Oh, well, you are special, because I'm blessed to have 18 of them as part of the Tony Kurre Radio Network. And it's something that I started on. I get to kind of pick and choose what I want to talk about. I didn't have any mortgage business. So in fact, I get to deal with you and a dear friend of mine for 30 years. What a blessing. And what a lot of people don't realize is everyone can say they're an expert about something. When you do a podcast, just because you're doing a podcast doesn't mean you know what the hell you're talking about. So when you're doing a good podcast and you do have an expert like yourself, then it's a win-win for everybody because you can learn something. And hopefully you just gave me some strategies before we even started today. Because I'm a guy that needs to rebuild my credit. My credit's not in a good position. I had a divorce 3 or 4 years ago. I'm still reeling. I'm still reeling in a lot of areas. I'm afraid to even call Experian. I don't even want to know what it is. I usually find out when I go try to buy a car or something like that, and go, oh, and then I get the letter in the mail. So that's something. But good for you and great for continuing to do what you do and learn. Let me ask you this, and I want to get into the 10 do's and don'ts and stuff, and I don't want to be a lecturer because our podcast is much more than that. But I do want to ask you, what is, since you've been doing this for 30 years, what is traditionally or logistically, philosophy wise, what has changed about your business from selling a home in 1989 as opposed to 2019? And I mean, I know you got HUD, I know you have all these different packages, and I know that the rate's always changing. So things are always but is there anything situational that really has changed a lot over the last 30 years since you started selling homes?
Well, it's real estate to me is ever evolving. And so you must immerse yourself into keeping up with the trends, keeping up with the market. We were just talking about that yesterday. How can you call yourself an expert if you don't know the market you're in?
Sure.
And you better know those numbers backwards and forwards.
And you're with Expert Realty, by the way, too. So just to remind people.
And so what we try to do is, number one, I don't ever feel like, and I've talked with some of the best CEOs with Berkshire Hathaway. Ty Dodge was fabulous. He said, Teresa, when do you think you're going to stop learning? I said, oh my gosh, I hope never.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the way I feel. You always must be educating yourself in some form or field. Like right now, I'm learning a lot about property management. I've done sales, and this is just another avenue to add to that portfolio of knowledge. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, you asked me, why do I do this? There's a lot of negative that happens in our industry. We get a lot of blowback. We get a lot of problems. And to stay positive, to stay in that mindset, you have to constantly feed the good, garbage out, good stuff in. And we want to make sure that we're staying positive and making sure that we're remaining calm, and that we're walking through the situations with the client. Because imagine this, you go to an agent and she's willy-nilly and she don't have a system, or they fly off the seat of their pants and they're nervous about everything. Well, you're not going to want them to sell me a house. I'll be like, you need to go figure out what you need to do in life, because this ain't it. Yeah. But if you have a structure and you have a game plan, the one thing I think is the laws got stricter after the 2008 debacle. And rates will be ever evolving. I don't even concern myself with the rates, because if you need a house, you need a house. Yep. It's not going to matter what the rate was. People had to find a house in 1980, and I was only a few years old, but interest rates then were 24%. So I don't want to hear it. I mean, it is what it is. And we can't go back to yesterday. We can't look in the rearview mirror. Our windshield is way big and our rearview mirror is a little small. I saw a post today, I wish I bought a house in 17, baby. That is 20 years ago. We in 2025 almost. You need to live for today. You cannot play on yesterday's lemonade. So what we try to do is stay relevant and communicate, but always maintain that empathy. It doesn't matter the class, the money, the education. If someone has put the effort into working and being able to get a home, then they need to have the best home they can get for what they're willing to spend. And for each person, that's individualized, because each need is different. So it's almost like the same process, but different. Technology's come extremely long ways.
Yeah. I mean,
please do not go to Zillow and look at your house, because what you're going to see is if it's in prime condition. Well, y'all know, now come on. It is not of the kingdom to be saying your house is in prime condition when it's been 25 years since you put a coat of paint or a roof on it. Yeah. Come on, man. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And so you have to learn how to overcome obstacles. And that's why you have to continuously educate yourself about everything. Who does have the best rates? What kind of mortgage does this person want or need? Is cash the best option? And you have advisors. I always say I don't give legal advice. Talk to a lawyer, talk to a mortgage person, talk to a title company, but the process is the same. No matter whether you're paying cash or investor, no matter what, you want to make sure you're getting the best deal for your money. And as I said before, I want every client to feel like they've won the lottery with me.
Yeah, and they do. Teresa Autrey with Expert Realty, 294-4210. She's right there in Hoover. You can stop by her office or give her a call, and of course also reach her on email. It's interesting because I think great coaches in college football surround themselves with great assistant coaches. Nick Saban will tell you he's won 7 championships because he's got the people around him. I mean, not only the football players, the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes, right? And so he's got the best of the best. And any given time during his time at Alabama, he had 3 or 4 professionals, guys that were in the National Football League on his staff. Now, you have to have money to do that. I understand that. So, but in my life, if I want the best outcome for something that I don't really know a whole lot about, I try to get an expert. We try to get the best lawyers. We try to get the best doctors. We try to get the best therapists. We all try to do that. We try to get the best people in their field around us. Obviously, money outstanding. We need to make sure we can afford these things. But when you're working off a commission, it's not like I'm not having to pay my expert realtor right off the top. You're going to get your money at the end. And so I know you're going to work really hard for it. I always think it's interesting, and it's going to get into our first question here. A lot of people will go, what's it called? The Thrifty Nickel or one of these car buying things, these magazines you used to buy.
Oh, like the Mule Trader or Thrifty Nickel. Trader.
And for people who don't know about it, before the internet, we used to have rags. We had papers, and you go pick one up at the street corner and you look it up and you want to buy a car, you do that, or you go to a dealership and feel like you're getting hammered, right? And so on any given day, you can drive down any busy street and see a car sitting on the side of the road for sale with a phone number. An owner did. Well, some people think that just because you can sell a $3,000 Jeep, a 1988 $3,000 Jeep, which by the way, I looked at it yesterday, you can also sell your home. And so I had a friend of mine who tried to sell his home on his own about 10 years ago. And he said, I will never, ever do that again. He said, and he had a $400,000 house. He did the math, thought he was going to save, like $17,000, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I will never, ever go through that process again. I will always hire someone. It's well worth every dime they make. Can you talk about the differences between trying to sell a home on your own and hiring someone like yourself?
Yes. And I did want to address one of the questions I was given yesterday. The biggest question I was given was, how do you come up with topics? And I thought, with 30 years experience, how do you not have topics?
I think we got 70 years of experience. We got 70 years of experience between the two of us. I don't think we're going to run out anytime soon.
That was ludicrous to me. I had no idea, but that was just not fathomable. So we'll get into it.
That's not a problem.
Number one, you absolutely can sell your home for sale by owner. And I don't want to any American, because we are still free to this day, to ever think otherwise. However, what you're going to deal with is not everyone is honest on both sides of the fence. And let's talk about this just across the board.
Do it.
The second thing is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that in Alabama, the HVAC typically gets about 18 to 20 years. You don't know that the roof is prorated, and you don't know these kind of things. You don't know the insurance. You don't know the taxes. You don't know what breaks to ask for. But the seller thinks, oh, I'll save this money. And what the buyer hears is, oh, I'm going to deduct that off the price. So nobody's saving, because then you're too far apart for it to even matter. And just remember, you get what you pay for. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I will tell you, some of the most successful men and women investors that I know that have 7- and 8-figure businesses that I personally talk to on a weekly basis, that I have done real estate deals with, have no problem paying money in commissions, because they know their time is better spent elsewhere. I'm not going to go to my chiropractor to get my ear worked on. I am not going to go to my dentist to get my heart operated on. Great medical schools, great people, but they're not what I need for what I need.
Yeah.
And so just like people have these options, new construction, and we've done a show about that, versus buying resale. We have rentals versus, building. We have all these different avenues. Use the resources. Do not try to do this yourself, because what I look at is, am I jeopardizing my family, my legacy, my children's inheritance by making a financial decision out of arrogance or ego? Or am I trying to save a nickel today and I'm just going to choose to spend a dime tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
But again, the buyer's sitting here going, I'm going to save that percentage on that commission by getting me a for sale by owner.
Yeah.
The by owner is going to say, I'm going to save the commission, but then there's so much liability. You don't know what to disclose. You don't know what not to disclose. You don't know the laws. You don't know the rules. You don't know the regulations. And if you don't know any of it, how do you know how to stay in confines of that? Would you just get in your car and start driving at 16 and let your children run out there and just start driving at 16 without having any instructions?
No.
Think about it.
No, my 12-year-old.
Go to a doctor that has never graduated medical school, never practiced the surgery, and said, yay, let me sign up to be your first heart patient.
Yeah, my 12-year-old started driving last week. She asked me if she could start driving.
How's her heart doing?
I said, she's doing great. I said, listen, I said, screw the golf cart. I said, let's go. I said, if you want to get on the road, I don't let her go down the interstate. I'm not going to let her kill somebody, but there's enough parking lots around here with no lampshades. You know, so, but
amen. That's what I used to do.
The sooner she starts driving, there's a police officer sitting right there, and he's like, dude, good for you. Let her drive all she wants. She drove for a couple hours. She did fantastic. As long as she can reach her pedals, it's great. So get your expert in the realty business. Do we want you to use Teresa Autrey? Absolutely, because she's the best. And listen, I only surround myself with the Michael Colemans of the world from the heart of Alabama Food Bank, with the Damon Johnsons, who are the guitar players for Leonard Skinner. I only have the best of the best on Tony Kurre Radio. And I do that because I want you to use their services. And then and by the way, I don't advertise or endorse anything on my network. I'm not blowing my own horn here, but I don't do it unless I use their services. And I'm going to use Teresa's services when I'm ready to buy a home. I mentioned the fact I've got the home bug. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have walked that neighborhood. I called you, and I am so flipping excited because now
you were out there the next day, video and sending me pictures. And
I know, right? I know. I took a picture of some contrails, and I was like right outside that thing, and I was like, I'm walking my neighborhood, and I told a woman, I was like, she goes, I've seen you walking around here a lot. Are you from here? And I said, no. I said, but I will live in this neighborhood in less than 2 years. And she was like, okay, dude, you do you, man. You do it. So I'm going to make that happen. Couple other questions. info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Buying homes over the holidays. You mentioned the fact doesn't matter if it's 24% or 7%. If you're transferred or you're going for a job, you want to buy a home, you buy a home. Let's take that out of the equation, because if you have to buy a home, you have to buy a home. You have to find a place, or you can go rent a place until you find the right home. Depending on whether you're moving your family or not. Say you just have the home bug like I do, and you're wanting to move into a neighborhood that you just found. It's talking to you, and you feel like you really want to go find something like that. My friend of mine wanted to know, are the holidays, he would think the holidays would be a good time to buy and or sell a home, because there's so much other stuff going on, and maybe they're not paying particular attention to what's going on. It's the holidays. Everyone's in a good mood. Maybe people will give you a little price cut here, this, that, and the other. Are the holidays a good time to buy or sell a home?
Well, I can tell you that from the aspect of a lot of physical years end in October and in December. Okay. So a lot of corporate transfers happen around the October to December, January mark. And of course, when you transfer, you got to be set up ready to rock and roll immediately. So that's one thing. The other thing is a cash buyer is a cash buyer.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to have cash all year long. And if they want a home, then, they already have, if they have a good agent, they've already been pre-programmed on, you have this letter ready, you have this check ready. You are not getting my car unless we've got an approval or we've got verification from your bank that you have the money to write a check today for this home. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're financing it. And then you have to think about, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to wait till the spring. Well, why would you put your home in with everybody else's that also comes out in the spring? Mm-hmm. There's no better time to sell real estate than today. And here's the other thing. It's a great break in the school year and in college for people that do have to transfer. That December is hard, it's tough, but they get through it. My best month is actually March. Do you know why? Because I've got most of my contracts in December.
Yeah, there you go.
And here's the thing. When you're out there shopping, those that do want to sell will go ahead during the holidays and say, hey, I need to sell my house, or I want to because this is where I want to be in 6 months. Yep. Time is the one thing you can't get back.
Yeah.
So the pricing it over just to see what the market's going to do, that is ridiculous. that is just wasting time. And that is the one thing you cannot buy back.
Another friend of mine asked me the question, have you ever sold a home that the person didn't want to sell? In other words, someone walked in and said, I love this neighborhood. I want this house. Give me some details on this house. And you're like, it's not for sale. And you're like, I don't care. Find out details on it. See what the deal is. I want to get in and look at this house. And they end up paying more than $100,000, $200,000 more than it's actually worth. Have you ever sold a house that way?
Yes, I have. And I make them sign all kind of disclaimers.
I'll bet you do.
Because number one, they don't know what the inside looks like from the outside. Mm-hmm. And we've done a show about that. Just because it's got a pretty yard don't mean it's pretty on the inside.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But you know what? If you have a pretty yard, you have a much better shot at it being nice inside. If the yard outside looks like shit, then there's a good chance they ain't taking care of their inside. Yeah,
exactly. And you don't want the bugs. You don't want the rodents. You don't want the animals that come from a messy yard.
Yeah.
So let's just say that all things being created equal. I have many a times walked up because I sold a house on the street in the neighborhood, or I started it and said, hey, listen, I know your house is not on the market. And don't do this unless you have a real client. It makes the industry look bad and it makes us real people look bad. But I would say, this is the person. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's the situation. Could we just have a conversation and see where we're at? If they slam the door in my face, if they pull a gun on me, I might say, okay, we're going to move on. But otherwise, if they're open to having that conversation, then maybe that's just the confidence they needed. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Maybe they themselves have been saying, hey, we're a little older. We don't need 4,000 square feet anymore. Should we sell? Should we not? We don't need the school systems anymore. I was just showing a house today in Indian Valley, and the first thing they said is, we're a young corporate couple traveling from, guess what, Ohio. They just got transferred. They need to be in by the end of the year. No kids, no dogs, no, just them two. And it's one of the things that does depend on them. But the other thing is, when we have flippers, they run off of straight numbers. If the math don't work, we don't do toilet paper math.
Yeah.
If math don't math, it don't math. Mm-hmm. And so if the house is worth this, very rare is anybody going to pay extra just to have that house.
Gotcha.
However, if it is a rarity, like a neighborhood or Victorian home, something they don't make anymore, way out in the country where people want that isolation, then they may say, well, you know what? I don't like to negotiate. I'm firm on this price. If you can get it for this price or less, sign me up. And then, of course, you go through it just like that. It's just a pure number.
Yeah.
And other people know exactly what they want. This one girl, she said, I want to live on the same street as my mama. The end, it was over in Inverness. I put her on what I call a plan. And I'm like, have your money ready, because houses didn't. We talked about this. Houses don't come for sale over there a lot. And it was the one I got her. She paid full asking price. No closing, closed in 26 days. It was still a good deal. The house is worth more than triple that now, but she had to do a lot of work to it. Yep. But she was an interior designer, so go at it, girlfriend. Yep. So it just depends on the situation. Sometimes yes, and but it's kind of like, let's not get confused with phantoms and unicorns and reality. Yep. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because 1% and 2% of the time that it happens, I don't want people to live by that, because standard is, we're going to have to get an appraisal. And, we are still at an inventory shortage. But as I said before, I literally saw this post, well, we're just going to put it on the market and see no, that's wasting your time and your agent's money. Yeah. And if the agents don't have that discipline and they want to test the market, that's on them. Yeah. It's their time, their money. But why are you going to let it sit there? Because the first thing you get is, oh, why has it been on the market so long? If it was a good house, it'd be sold. Mm-hmm. There's only 3 reasons why it stays on the market. We talked about this before: the location, the price, and the condition.
Yeah. There you go. Teresa Autrey, 294-4210, 294-4210 right there in Hoover, expertrealty.com. She does wonderful work. She's been in the business for 30 years, and I'm going to take up this entire show with the questions I had, and then maybe we could follow up with your questions because you give such great answers. And I do think I did have someone say, well, "Where's this home you're talking about? I heard you on your home field advantage."
No, none of business.
And I was like, I'm not telling you where this place is, because I know this guy. This guy will end up buying a house there just to get after him. I said, I'm not telling you where it is. He's like, I can find out where that home is. I said, you ain't gonna find out where it is. Forget it. Don't ask. You'll know.
Tell him good luck with that.
You'll know when I post pictures.
Start at the tip of Florida and go all the way. I-65 goes all the way up.
Exactly. Final question. How important is land with your home? The homes I have bought, I see some of these, for sake of a better word, garden homes. They're not really garden homes because they're $450,000 homes, but there's literally a postage stamp yard. There's no yards. You could look out your kitchen window and see the next door neighbor, and that's fine if that's what you're into. I know a lot of younger professionals that worked out at UAB. They like that kind of thing because they don't want to take care of a yard and they like brand new homes, this, that, and the other. I always thought if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I want to have a yard. And I got kids. I'm typically have a yard where you could actually do something in. And this rental, I don't really have a yard I can play in. And so my kids play out in the front yard. But traditionally, I've always owned more than about a half, 3/4, maybe almost an acre of land with the home I've had, just because it came with the house. Is that important when it comes to selling the home? I don't know if in some cases it looks like maybe where they were selling lots when they actually started the complex. Maybe they said, okay, we're end up not putting a home here, so let's just make it part of this home. I don't know. Is that possible? But how important is it to have land? Or is land worth anything?
Well, it depends. I have like my son and his wife and their children, they want acreage in the country. They want their kids to grow up with the good old fashioned values, and he's a hunter. And so he loves that kind of, environment. And my daughter, she went to UAB for 6 years, got very used to the city life. You can walk everywhere. And but she wants about an acre, half an acre of land, about that much. And she's fine, like a rustic tiny house. It's just her. And so you have to look at each individual case. I had the big house. When I got divorced, I went to a townhome because I needed the low maintenance, easy, peasy stuff. But then eventually I had the big house with the Georgia grass and the irrigation system and, the 3-car garage. And that was great while it lasted. But as we go through stages in our life, I had to start consider traffic patterns. What is my time worth? What's important to me? Now I think it would be situational. I have some millennials that they want to live in an older neighborhood that's got some mature trees, and they want to do a little garden. And so they want those 1/4 acre, half acre lots where you could do that.
Yeah.
The other people, I have millennials that, as you said, they're corporate. They want to come in. They want to entertain. They don't want a yard to maintain. The more concrete, the better. Amenities is a huge thing right now where people want amenities, but people are really upset with HOAs being so totally ridiculous right now. So it's like, do you want HOA? I will have people say, get me the hell out of this HOA situation. I don't want to ever deal with it. Then I have other.
Do you actually have people that will move out of their home because of the HOA?
Absolutely. And so did I. I personally moved out just because the lady lived across the street and she was all up in my business all the time.
All right, we have a topic for next week. Let's talk about HOAs because I think that's really amazing. It really is. I've never been in a.
And some are worth it, and some are crap.
Yeah. Well, but you know that going in, right? When you buy the house, you're going to be part of an HOA. Is that
are you going to have a middle of the road HOA board or team or person? Or are you going to have someone so unreasonable they want to know why your neighbor visited you for 4 hours? Yeah. Why did you park on the street? Why did your grandkids come and spend the night with you?
Gotcha.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's that kind of tenseness that can ruin a whole atmosphere. Your neighbors are very important. Like I was very fortunate my first few houses. I had one of the best neighbors in the world. We were neighbors for 10 years. I mean, my kids treated her like a grandma. Mm-hmm. We loved her. She would ask them to do something. We never charged, but that's because you want to be a great neighbor, doing to others. However, I know other people that are just something else. We'll just leave it right there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this right now. Your neighbors are your neighbors. They're not going to change.
Well, you hope they do if they're bad.
It's like
let me help you sell your house for you.
Yeah, it's like dating. Don't think you're going to change the person you're dating. Don't think, well, he's got some issues in this thing, but I think a little love's going to really take the edges off. No, it's like neighbors aren't going to be like that, and neighbors are super important. And the last time I had to leave, one of the reasons I was most difficult is because of my neighbors. I just trusted my neighbors. I know I could leave my doors open. They knew my kids. I knew they had my back whenever there was an issue with anything. So it was super cool. I know I cut you off, but anything else on land?
I want to check out 3 things. Does it have improvements or not? That means, is it raw land, or does it have power, sewer, water, septic? Is it on the lake? Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to have flood insurance? Will you be building, or is the house already built? And absolutely yes. When we do subdivisions, we do highest and best use on property. And if a lot is not going to perk, or we feel like it'd be too difficult to maybe dig it out, or simply it just don't work on the plan and concept we want to do, I try to use that. Some subdivisions, I turn it into a park for kids. I've done that a lot of times. I've turned it into walking trails. Lakes are good land levelers.
Yep.
You can do a lot with it and leave it natural. Walking trails. You can do all kind of things and create something that's an amenity that's free and low maintenance to the community. Or you can simply say, well, it's only half an acre. And this is happening. Why don't we just make this quarter acre lot a full acre? And then that way you can have that rounded driveway for safety coming in and out. Or it's in a sharp curve. Let's make sure that they are getting the most bang for the buck. Or as a mountain brook, it's straight down a hill, straight up a hill. And what you want to do is just try to utilize it. I always have the 25% green rule, which is, if you can, leave 25% of a neighborhood green.
20%?
That's either dog parks, children parks, a combination of both, walking trails, lakes, whatever, because that brings peace and serenity, brings joy to people. And I don't see like construction dust and big machinery and loud noises and contractors. I see families making memories.
Yeah.
And so the highest and best use may be a high-rise condo. It may be for senior citizens, low maintenance, small yards. It may be for young families and millennials. So I think it depends on the lay of the land, because that dictates what you need to do.
There you go. So just out of that, I got septic tanks, I got waterworks, I got sewer, I got basements, I've got round driveways, I got electricity above or below ground. These are all things that I'm writing down that we can get into in future shows. But next week, we're going to get into the HOAs, because I think that's great. I think that I could probably get on Reddit and throw something out there about HOAs, because I'm sure everyone's got a great HOA story if you've ever been part of a homeowners association, which is hilarious. Because I've heard people talk about my HOA sucks so bad that I'm like, really? Because I always just thought it was like, pay your $75.
And some of them are really good, because I know that for bigger subdivisions, you need people to kind of watch, like if someone's car or they're parking on the grass and they've got 10 cars in the front yard. No, you don't want that. That's going to bring everybody's value down.
Sure.
Or if the grass is 6 foot tall, it's going to welcome rats and snakes and rodents. You don't want that. But I mean, don't go out there with scissors trying to measure with a millimeter ruler about how tall the grass is.
Yeah, the last place I lived, you weren't allowed to have colored Christmas lights. I'm like, really? So I put them up anyway, and my neighbors did it. No one said a word. So it's kind of like, this is ridiculous. Sometimes rules are meant to be not only broken, but changed for sure. All right, Teresa, tell people how they can find you, hon.
You guys can just reach out to me, 205-294-4200. Text is always wonderful. Same number. In my email, it's teresa.expert@gmail.com. And just reach out anytime you want. I will say I changed my voicemail this morning. I literally was emailing my Congressman, Gary Palmer, this morning, and one of my investors said, hey, I'm right behind you if you can get that law changed. So my voicemail's been filling up before 10 a.m. with health insurance calls, with student loans I don't have, tax issues I don't have, debt consolidation issues I don't have. It's insane. It's too much.
Yeah.
And I was like, car warranties, everything. And I'm like, there are 40, 50 calls. I'm having to spend my life deleting crap. So I changed it, and I was like, if you are car title warranty, I don't need you. If you're health insurance, I have health insurance, and it's really short, but it's kind of cute. And one of my investors said, if you can find out a way, so Gary Palmer sends back this very nice structured email saying, well, Teresa. And he's like, all saying, this is the law, this is the law. And I was like, well, we want it changed, and I'm coming together with force. I'm sick of the health insurance calls, 12 back to back in the morning. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it's just, I was like, that's minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. So email, text, call, and we will get it handled.
Gary, by the way, is one of the good guys. I mean, he really is.
He really is. And that's why I reached out to him over the years. My son actually was only 13, emailed him and said, we want this happening. And Gary sent him back a message. And I knew his wife, Julie, we were helped her with a campaign. And we were laughing because Kim wanted to do the same thing to us. Like, now, Teresa, and just like, don't tell me who you are and give me your information if you don't want me to call you with some issues.
There you go.
Because I'm all about let's get to the problem, let's solve it, let's move forward.
Cool. God bless you, baby. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk next week.
Okay.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.